Well, it was only a matter of time before I would get to this particular topic. This topic was brought up to me by someone in my Discord and wanted me to put my opinions on the matter. It is, of course, about the Xbox One, and honestly, I would be playing the new Xbox if I had one. I don't know where the joke was going, but anyways, let's get to the topic.
I knew it was only a matter of time before I would actually do a video on the Xbox One. It was something that was expected to happen, and honestly, I'm not really surprised that it's not doing that well. From its initial launch all the way up to present day, the Xbox One has failed to meet expectations in both sales numbers and titles. Now, it's not to say that the system is not built well enough. I mean, the console has a lot of power backing onto it, even on the Xbox One X. But the main problem is that it's been struggling to keep up with exclusivity and tons of other issues along with it. But to truly experience how we got to this point, we need to look back to the reveal of the Xbox One. When we got the details of the system, it felt very uninspiring, to say the least. When they showed off the design of the console at the press event, it just looked almost like the original design. And no, I'm not exaggerating one bit. You compare both designs and you tell me that this did not look almost very similar to the original Xbox. As a matter of fact, the design of it just reminded me of a prototype of the original Xbox, only just slightly tweaked later on in the lifespan. Though I do prefer the Xbox 360's controller design as opposed to the Xbox One just because of how futuristic looking it was. And speaking of the 360 system's original design was a heck of a lot better improvement than the original Xbox, and it was a lot more slimmed down. It had a sleek hourglass look to it as opposed to a more bulkier and more heavier looking design. Though with the Xbox One, that design was basically taken a back step to about 3 to 4 steps back. The system design didn't shout out futuristic or next gen. It just seemed like that this was just a console that almost seemed like there was not really any change or any upgrades whatsoever. And also on the topic of things that don't change, leaving the Kinect with the system affected the sales greatly. Now, I'm not saying that the idea of the Kinect in general was a bad idea. It just didn't really move system units as opposed to what Microsoft was hoping for. And at the press event, that's another thing that just seemed like there was hardly any games actually mentioned about, mostly just about graphics, sports, and TV. And while this is technically a press event, this mainly was viewed by more gamers than it was the press in general. Because you gotta understand, who's the one that's actually buying your products in the first place? Who is the ones that are the most interested to be able to buy the next Xbox system once it's actually launched during the holiday season? It's not no parents, it's mostly the gaming community in general. And they were basically let down as a whole just because of how it was presented on day one. Also, back onto the whole thing about sports and TV. Who in their right mind would honestly want to consider their gaming console as a TV remote? Not necessarily anybody, because what's the most convenient? The controller. The controller is more responsive, and it's actually not a bit of a hassle, because you don't have to honestly speak into it just to be able to operate and maneuver through different menus. And while the concept behind it was interesting at best, I don't really think a cable box and a video game console all in one was a good idea. The main difference between that and DVRs is that DVRs record television shows, and even those nowadays are becoming more or less obsolete, as opposed to just PC streaming where you can honestly get just about everything you want imaginable. And yes, I understand that people do in fact use their consoles and laptops for streaming services like YouTube and even for Netflix and Hulu and even using it for Spotify. But the main point of a video game console is not about TV services and premium packages. It's about the gaming experience. The always online situation pretty much affected the very antithesis of that mention was put out there for the general public. There were articles that were plastered up and it was mainly negative to the degree. And what was their response?
So that, to me, is a future-proof choice, and I think people could have arguably gone the other way if we didn't do it. And fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message. If you don't,
Well,
if you don't like it.
if you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device. I mean, seriously, when I read the blogs and thought about who's really the most impacted, there was a person who said, hey, I'm on a nuclear sub.
Right.
And I don't even know what it means to be on a nuclear sub, but I've got to imagine that it's not easy to get an internet connection.
If that was the main point of what you were trying to get people to convince themselves to get an Xbox One, it failed miserably. They should have thought about this from the very start before even mentioning that. One thing that they think they really forgot to consider was the fact that more homes don't necessarily need internet to be able to operate many video game consoles. And it's just a business practice that just fails to this day. If EA and Blizzard could not pull off the always online stipulation and failed to sell out units, then what is the point of Microsoft even being able to pull this off? Well, the answer is simple, because Microsoft wants to at least be in full control. They want to make sure that people aren't pirating their software and other things at the same time, but most of the time you're not going to be getting people like that. They just want to basically buy a console for their little Timmy so he can play the next Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. And of course, you know that it was bad enough that Sony even had a field day with the event for E3. Speaking of, I was very unimpressed with how their event went, because yes, they did actually feature off a few little additional titles that I was excited about, like the new remake for Killer Instinct, and it is probably one of the premier titles to be shown off for events like EVO. But everything else that was shown was either titles that were going to be released on many other consoles, or it's some that were exclusive that didn't really impress people at the event. And also the fact that trying to sell the unit off as $4.99 was a bad move as a whole. For that price alone, you could have technically bought a PC that was pre-built and could be able to operate just about any of the titles that were shown off. And also the fact that you could do a lot more with it. Even though I could technically go on and on about how badly executed their E3 event went, we really do need to talk about the exclusivity issue and why it's been affecting them since the launch of the system. Since 2013 all the way up to 2018, over 15 studios that were developing games for the Xbox One have either ceased to exist anymore or have since lost partnership to move on to other platforms. Game titles like Scalebound from Platinum Games, cancelled. Fable Legends, cancelled. Phantom Dust Reboot, cancelled. Shanghai, cancelled. Stormlands from Obsidian Entertainment, cancelled. Project Knoxville, cancelled. Twisted Pixel, cancelled. Even the create your own levels software tool Project Spark, which even featured the well-beloved rare character Conquer, also cancelled. And that's just only reaching the little tip of the iceberg about many other issues with the entire library of the Xbox One. And I know some people are going to be furious with me by saying that the Xbox One technically doesn't have games, but let me put it into perspective this way. While you can complain that the Wii U had no games for it, it had way more exclusives for the Wii U than it did the Xbox One. And you want even more proof why there isn't really many games for it? Then allow me to bring this up. Let me showcase a list of all the games that are exclusive to this system. The main reason for this is because of the fact that families just want to buy something for their kids, and if they don't have the internet, then they can't necessarily buy the games digital. So let's just assume we're going into a GameStop, and you have to consider what are the main exclusives that you can give them that they can't get on any other platform. So judging from the list, there's a pretty good little list of titles that are here and available for people to pick through. So what can they exactly get? First thing to go on the chopping block is timed exclusives. And we take away those few titles because Dead Rising 4 would have actually been a really good pickup, but it's on PC and also on PS4. Disneyland Adventures is a pretty interesting pickup if you have a little kid around 10 or 12 years old. Fantasia Music Evolved is a peripheral exclusive, considering you have to use that for motion controls, and Fighter Within is technically just a motion-controlled fighting game, which gets you into shape, but not a lot of people are going to care to pick that one up, so let's move on. Forza Horizon 2 and 3 are good games in general, but most of the Forza games are technically on PC as well, except for Forza Motorsports 5, so we'll just assume that Forza Motorsports 5 would be the better choice. And of course, there's also Gears of War, but oh, both are also on PC. Well, at least there's Halo, and Halo Master Chief Collection and Halo 5 Guardians are only console exclusives that we're going to right now. However, both of the Halo games that are on the Xbox One are pretty much exclusive to the system, except for Halo Wars 2, but not everybody bought that, so let's move on. Hello Neighbor would have been on the list, but that one's easily able to get found onto PC, and it's a lot cheaper as well. Kinect Sports Rivals probably would have been bought more, but not everybody had a Kinect, and nowadays the peripheral is non-existent, so moving on. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, also on PC, so moving on to that. Project Spark would have been a nice little pickup, but the product itself has been discontinued, and it's no longer able to get any additional content, and it was also on PC as well. Quantum Break, also on PC. And then we get to a very awesome exclusive Rare Replay, a big old compilation of some of the best Rare games that were ever released for pretty much any of the past generation. So that's a plus. And on to even more rare titles, Recore, but it is technically on PC. Rise of the Tomb Raider originally was a timed exclusive, but now that it's pretty much on PS4 and PC, it's pretty much non-existent at this point. Rise Son of Rome was a launch exclusive, but it's pretty much on PC as well. Sea of Thieves, also on PC. State of Decay being a very interesting zombie survival horror game, it's also on PC. Sunset Overdrive pretty much reminded me a little bit of Infamous just based on its third-person action platforming gameplay, and it's very colorful and fun, so that one's definitely a plus on there. Super Lucky's Tale basically came out around the time of the Xbox One X, but it's also on PC. Same thing with Titanfall and Zoo Tycoon. Zydo Cross Tatsunoko Legends is basically the only import that's pretty much exclusive to the system, while Chaos Child is pretty much a timed exclusive. So after the rough calculations and basically going through all the games that weren't mainly exclusive to the system, that means there are only 14 titles that were mainly exclusive for this one system. By the time this video is out, there's only been about 35 million units that have sold worldwide. It goes to show just how bad this system is getting in sales-wise, and why the Xbox One X isn't doing it any justice. And look, the Xbox One X is a powerful system, but the main issue with it is that you have to have exclusives to push the console for it to even make any sales. And even though it is as powerful as a PC, there's one factor that Microsoft seems to forget about. If people were going to pay that much for a new console that would have PC power, I would probably pay about as much to get the same type of power, if not more, on a PC than I would just on a video game console. And because I don't want to have to pay for online services to be able to play with friends online, where I can just do that on PC for free. The main reason I play video game consoles in the first place is for exclusive titles that I can't get on any other platform. And if there's only a certain few titles that I want out of those 14 games, then that's kind of an issue for me to not want to pick it up. I know that it's kind of wrong for me to say this, but I don't think right now I want an Xbox One. Hopefully by the time that when this video is out and E3 is already come and gone, we'll have a lot more exclusives to look forward to, and probably some that we'll be able to pick up and play for the holiday season. As of right now, it's really hurting me to see how bad the Xbox One is doing sales-wise. Japan, it's pretty much non-existent since more people are more interested in the Nintendo Switch and the PS4, and even the 3DS. When that is selling more than a next-gen console, you know you have an issue on your hands. So here's to hoping that it gets into a recovery state and comes back swinging, because I would love to pick up an Xbox One, but in the state that it's in right now, it's gonna be an extreme hard pass for me.
Now, before the video ends, just wanted to actually get this out of the way, that if you're thinking that I hate Xbox One or hate Xbox in general, I have, like, tons of video games from the original Xbox on my shelf, and I do have a game for the Xbox One. It's a compilation. I don't have the system yet, but this was, like, the only interesting thing just because of Rare Replay. I think it's a powerful piece of hardware, but the problem is there's not enough exclusives for me to get the system just yet. So that's the video. If you have an Xbox One, if you agree or disagree, feel free to post down below. I would love to know what your thoughts are. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. I'll try to get more of these out there. Thanks again for watching this What to Think, and that is all. That might be a catchphrase. I gotta put this back up on my shelf now. Goodbye.